Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Matchbox Talks. Getting married can have a lot of obstacles in the way. Staying married and staying married with a smile isn't any easier either. Today, we have Matchbox founder and chief matchmaker, Dr. Banu Murtaja, and her husband, Seeda Nader Khan, to talk to us about the topic that's on everyone's mind at least once in their life: how to get married, where to find a spouse, how to find an appropriate spouse. So today's topic is aspirations and ambitions, holidays in halloumi. Tell us more.
So these topics were actually set by our audience members. So the topics, we kind of crowdsourced the topics and said, right, what do you want us to talk about? And this particular topic, they had said, what should we be having conversations about? Aspirations, ambitions, or holidays and halloumi, and they wanted us to talk about that. I mean, I think for me, to be honest, I think both are important. I think there's a time and a place in a marriage conversation to have conversations that are a little bit more lighthearted, to have conversations that are around, I want to go on holiday to Vienna. Why Vienna? Because I want to sail on a gondola, or whatever it might be. Right. But ambitions, aspirations, there are certain conversations I think that are really crucial that I think we often take for granted. But I'm going to let you jump in before I go off on I think entire thesis about this.
Let's save everybody that. I think ambitions.
You're in hitting distance.
Yes, of course. I think ambitions and aspirations between the two would be the core that I would want to talk about. I mean, at least that we spoke about. Was because they sort of indicate where your life is headed, where you see yourself, going, in your life. And I think they form the core, the core foundation of who you are as a person and where you two could travel together in this journey of your marriage, right? And every now and then, holidays and halloumi would be the relief that comes in every now and then, right. The lightheartedness to help you keep going. But I think there's no like binary dichotomy between the two. I think both are important. But the meat and potatoes weight should be given to the aspirations and the direction that you have in marriage. But it comes down to that conversation of deal breakers, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. Your aspirations. My aspiration is that I want to spend the rest of my life doing what I do, and that would have been a deal breaker for me. Like, I can't leave what I'm doing. For Banu, it was studying the deen. Wherever she is, however she, wherever in the world she is, she wanted to continue her studies, right? And I thought that was really cool, right? But that would be a deal breaker for her. So many of these aspirations and inspirations would be the reason they're really important is because they would be deal breakers. A holiday in Vienna will not be a deal breaker for most people. Maybe if you like really bad dark roasted coffee, which is like charcoal water, but but for most people, they can give that up. Instead of Vienna, they might go to Rome.
Right. Right. So just on your point earlier about how the two of you talked about that, at what point did you bring that up? Because I feel like people focus more on the deal breakers versus...
Oh, right. That was our first conversation.
The lifestyle-oriented questions.
To be fair, we only had 5 conversations before we decided to get married. He proposed at the 3rd conversation, and I held out for his references. I was like, I ain't saying yes till I get references.
Which you should.
But it was 5 conversations, 6 days.
It was more of a conclusion than a proposal. It was like, you know what? Yeah, this is it.
So, but I mean, I think deal breakers are a good thing to start off with, because what they do is they really approach it with your head before you get emotionally invested. Because, the more you talk about holidays and halloumi, the more emotional investment comes in. It's like you've got your big rocks in your jar, and then you've got your little pebbles in the water. And the little pebbles in the water are important, and they will fill up your life, but it's the big rocks in your jar that are going to make the difference. They're the ones that are going to hold the jar down or not. And if you deal with all the pebbles in the water first, and you start thinking, oh, I really like this person, they make me laugh, one of the things that I say to clients often is don't presume that because you found somebody you like, your values align. Okay. Because you can find somebody who you get on with, really,
or even
really
your
get on with.
priorities.
But if you're if you look at just the top reasons people get divorced, finances, children, religious values, etc. Like those are the big, they're the things that actually, when it comes down to it, on your deathbed, you're going to look back and think, that was important to me. And the other stuff, it might have passed your days, but it's not going to carry you through.
And do you find that that's important even when we're talking to a predominantly Muslim clientele?
No,
absolutely.
So you shouldn't assume just because you're Muslim that the big rocks have been taken care of.
Absolutely, because you're human, right? Like one of my biggest things was, look, I have ADHD, right? Living with somebody like me is not everybody's it's difficult. Right? I'm a difficult person to live with. And Banu's immediate reaction was, what does that mean? So I referenced a book to her, right? What was that book? I'm
not lazy, crazy, or stupid.
Yeah, something like that, right? So which gave her a decent idea of what
she might be walking into,
right?
Yeah.
And she would have to be okay with it, right? And that would have, for somebody, that would have been a deal breaker, right? That would not be aligned with their, life aspirations and goals.
Right.
But also, I think, and this is also a mistake that we make. That presumption that all Muslims are the same, or it's all because again, our clients, and often we'll have clients that will ring us up and say, do you have these kinds of Muslims? Or do you have people who have these sorts of values? Or do you have people who, everything from, do you have people that are practicing and really, studying the deen and really, really traditional and living this sort of a lifestyle? And then at the other end of the spectrum, you'll have people that will say, look, I'm culturally Muslim. I want to marry a Muslim, but for the most part, I'm integrated to such an nth degree that you wouldn't even tell that I was a Muslim.
So just don't make assumptions
Right.
about.
And at the same time, they define themselves as moderate, right? But it's a very subjective definition. I'm a really moderate Muslim. What does that even mean for you, right? And you start unpacking that. Like you have 5 different people say moderate, but they're all completely different from each other.
Yeah, and so I think the crucial thing when you start looking at this sort of the conversations that you ought to have is if you deal with the head questions first, and that's what having a professional involved allows you to do, because we can ask questions which you might feel uncomfortable to ask somebody.
Right.
Hold on, so you were divorced, why were you divorced? Right. Tell me all the details. That's not a conversation you have on the first time around you're meeting somebody, but we can have that conversation. It means that you have it before you're emotionally invested, and so then now, by the time you get to the point where you're just thinking, is that je ne sais quoi there? You've dealt with all the big stuff, and now you're looking at, okay, I really want to travel the world. What about you?
Right. Okay. All right. Audience question?
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
I don't know if Banu has covered it or not, but I will add to it that when we're looking at aspirations and ambitions and what are the deal breakers, I'm pretty sure she mentioned that, talking about children and your education, your careers, but talking about families also is something that's really, really important. For example, living with in-laws, right? On both sides, right? Whether it's a girl's preference or not, and can a guy accommodate or not, right? Or maybe one of the parent has passed away, and that that person's obligation to work towards a certain parent, whether they're disabled or they're really sick. So those even if they're not, exactly. Right. Even if they're not, it's just a child's obligation to take care of their parent as a fard, right? As a fard.
Absolutely.
It's something so important, and it's something that both partners need to be, on the same page, on a similar page with. so that they can, obviously move ahead in their life, knowing that this is expected
Right.
and not like what, right? So I think talking about families, each of those families, the dimensions, the dynamics is so important,
Yeah.
No,
along
absolutely.
with other things that we have
Because
discussed.
technically, you're not responsible for taking care of your spouse's mother,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
But
So-
you'd have to, but you'd have to be okay with that right at the outset,
yes.
right? That this is one of your aspirations.
But on the other side of the coin, you should be flexible and understanding enough for your partner that he has an obligation.
Of course.
He has the duty.
No,
or the girl has the duty.
No, absolutely. I
Right.
think, but the point that I was making was you should be having that conversation well in advance.
Early enough.
So that you have an agreement of, look, if this circumstance comes about, then this is what I'm going to do. You have to be okay with it.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
No, barakallah fikum.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
And the audience member touched on something that we would like to cover in a podcast all on its own, right? Expectations around the mechanisms of how are we going to have this life together once sort of the deal breakers that we're discussing right now have been dealt with, right? So the key aspirations and ambitions, and then talking about holidays and halloumi, but definitely the question around in-laws is something that we need to look at later.
Absolutely.
So to recap, then, really just the advice that we've heard from Dr. Banu and Sayyid Nader is that have those big deal breaker questions dealt with early on. Definitely bring in a professional if you feel like that would be supportive of your goals, and don't shy away from expressing who you are once and your expectations once you've dealt with the key foundational things that you need to get in order to have a successful and long-term marriage. So we look forward to joining you next time. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.